My husband thinks his gaslighting is just a joke. Today, I took off my wedding rings and told him I'm done. After he pulled his latest stunt, he didn't even understand why. My husband, 36M, thinks it's funny to gaslight me, 35F. He says he's just being silly. I don't find it funny, and it upsets me when he continues to push his false narratives, especially because he's a bad liar and you can see it in his face when he's doing his gaslighting bit. I've told him many times that I don't appreciate his way of joking with me, but it's like he doesn't listen. Today, while shopping, he asked me for my opinion on a pair of shoes he found and was trying on. Before I could answer, he was already saying things like, "No, right? These don't look that great, huh? They just aren't what I usually wear." To which I responded, "Well, it seems you don't like them. You don't really need my opinion. They do look trippy, though." I said that because the pattern of the shoes faded from black to white, with black speckled underneath the white fabric of the shoes. I don't know how else to describe them other than they reminded me of an optical illusion. He decided he didn't like them and returned them to the shelf. It was my turn to try on a pair, and he came around the corner and gave a disgusted face. And I asked, "You don't like these?" To which he responded, "They look trippy." The color pattern and the color palette of the shoes was very similar to another pair I had tried on in a different brand, which he was fully supportive of. So I felt he only said this as his way of being silly again. I then asked, "What do you mean trippy? Are you saying that because of the comment I made on the shoes you just tried on?" To which he replied, "No, I didn't even like them." And I asked, "Then why did you ask my opinion?" To which he replied, "What opinion?" And gave me a confused look. This is what I mean by gaslighting. This one example may seem silly, but yesterday while I was in the bathroom, he made a ruckus and yelled out a profanity. I thought he was hurt and called out to him. When he came over, I asked him what had happened, and he told me nothing happened. He was folding laundry and didn't know what I was talking about. And when I explained what I had heard, he told him he didn't hear anything and he wasn't doing anything. He eventually caved and grinned when I wouldn't let it go. It's become second nature for him. And I'm so tired of constantly having to explain myself and pull the truth from him when he tries to act silly. So, I put away the shoes and asked him for the keys to the car so I can wait for him in the car while he continued shopping. I was already annoyed and frustrated and wanted to just go back to the car to cool off. He refused to hand them over and said he was going to the restroom and proceeded to walk away. At this point, I figured after he went to the restroom, we would be leaving the store, so I waited for him at the front of the store. Not at the door, but within view of the front entrance. I don't know at what point he slipped out because he called me within 10 minutes of waiting. I answered the phone and told him I was waiting at the front for him, and he then proceeded to let me know he was already in the car waiting for me. This hurt my feelings, because while I was letting him know where I would be waiting on him if he gave me the keys and he didn't grant me that, he left me behind in the store waiting for him. So I walked alone through the parking lot to get back to the car feeling humiliated. I began crying on the way home from being frustrated with his behavior. I started my day with his silly gaslighting antics, and they hadn't resolved by the afternoon. When we got home, he proceeded to tell me he was sorry for whatever he said or did that upset me. I took off my wedding rings and dropped them in the cup holder and told him I was done. I got out of the car and walked into the house. I feel that if he isn't even aware of what he did to upset me, even after I've spent all this time in our marriage telling me I don't appreciate him tampering with my recollection of events or reality, then I shouldn't even bother with the marriage anymore. We've only been married 3 years. I know I shouldn't make permanent decisions based on temporary emotions, but I don't know how much longer I can continue letting him gaslight me because he thinks it's funny. Am I the asshole for taking off my wedding rings? Did I overreact? Update 1. So I took some time to reflect after reading all the comments, and wow, I didn't expect this much feedback. Thanks to everyone who weighed in. I didn't think my situation would resonate with so many people. I want to clarify a few things and update you on what happened after I took off my wedding rings. First off, some of you asked if this behavior was new, or if it's been like this since the beginning. Looking back, I realize he's always had a weird sense of humor, but it wasn't as frequent or blatant. It was more subtle. Little things that didn't bother me as much at first. Like, he'd say, "I didn't leave the dishes out," when clearly he did, but it was always with a grin that made me think he was just playing around. I guess I brushed it off because it wasn't constant, and I didn't see the pattern until after we got married. After our latest incident at the store, I went inside the house and locked myself in the bedroom. I needed space to cool down and figure out what the hell just happened, Ed. He didn't follow me, didn't knock, didn't even text me to see if I was okay. That silence was more deafening than any argument we could have had. I spent the night in the guest room, not because I was trying to make a statement, but because I couldn't bear to be in the same bed as him after what he pulled. The next morning, he acted like nothing had happened. He made breakfast, asked if I wanted some coffee, and when I didn't respond, he just shrugged and went about his day. It's like my anger and hurt didn't even register with him. That's when I realized this wasn't just silly behavior. It was a pattern of him dismissing my feelings entirely, and I started wondering if this was really gaslighting or something deeper. I decided I couldn't just leave things as they were. We needed to talk, and I needed to be heard. So I sat him down and told him we needed to have a serious conversation. He looked confused at first, but agreed. I asked him straight up why he thinks it's funny to mess with me like this. Why he keeps trying to convince me that what I heard, saw, or remembered wasn't real. His response was frustrating, to say the least. He said he didn't realize it was upsetting me so much and thought it was just our thing, like an inside joke we both understood. When I told him, again, that it wasn't funny to me and never had been, he seemed genuinely surprised. But then he said, "If it bothers you that much, I'll stop," in the most nonchalant way, like he was offering to change the channel because I didn't like the show that was on. I told him that wasn't enough. I needed to know why he thought it was okay to mess with my perception of reality, why he thought it was funny to make me doubt myself. He didn't have a good answer. He just kept saying he didn't mean to hurt me and that he didn't think it was a big deal. That's when I broke down. I told him I felt like I was going crazy, that I couldn't trust what was happening around me, and that it was all because of his jokes. I said that if he couldn't see how serious this was, we needed to consider if this marriage was really working. That finally got his attention. He seemed shocked, like he hadn't realized how bad things had gotten. He apologized more sincerely this time and promised he would never do it again. But I'm not sure I believe him. This isn't the first time he's promised to stop doing something that bothers me, only to do it again a few weeks later. I'm left feeling confused and unsure of what to do next. I don't want to throw away 3 years of marriage over this, but I also don't know if I can keep living like this. I'm considering counseling, but I'm worried he won't take it seriously. Have any of you been in a similar situation? Does counseling really help in cases like this, or am I just delaying the inevitable? Update 2. Thank you to everyone who commented on my last update. Your advice and stories really helped me see things more clearly. I took the leap and asked my husband if he would be willing to go to couples counseling. To my surprise, he agreed without hesitation, saying he was willing to do whatever it took to make things right between us. We had our first session a few days ago, and it was eye-opening. The therapist asked us to talk about the incidents that led us here, and as I was explaining, I realized just how many times he had pulled this gaslighting crap on me. It wasn't just the big things like what happened at the store, but so many little things that I had almost forgotten about. The therapist was really good at pointing out how these jokes were chipping away at my sense of reality and self-worth. She even said that it sounded like emotional abuse, which hit me like a ton of bricks. My husband seemed taken aback by that term. He kept insisting that he never meant to hurt me and that he didn't realize the impact his behavior was having. But when the therapist asked him why he felt the need to joke in this way, he didn't have an answer. He just looked confused and a little lost, like he genuinely didn't understand why he was doing it. That's when the therapist suggested that he might have some unresolved issues of his own, possibly stemming from his upbringing or past relationships, that were manifesting in this unhealthy behavior. We left the session with a lot to think about. My husband was quiet on the way home, which is unusual for him. When we got back, he said he needed some time to process everything, so we spent the evening apart. I'm not sure what he's thinking, but I've been going over everything in my head nonstop. The idea that this might be more about him than about me is both a relief and a new source of anxiety. I don't want to be his emotional punching bag while he figures out his issues, but I also don't want to walk away if there's a chance we can work through this. I've decided to give counseling a real shot, but with some boundaries in place. I told my husband that I need to see real effort from him, not just in counseling, but in our day-to-day interactions. No more jokes, no more messing with my head, even if he thinks it's harmless. I also need him to be open about what's going on with him, not just brushing things off like he usually does. He agreed, but I can't help feeling like I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. What if he can't change? What if this is just who he is and I'm fighting a losing battle? I know it's only been one session, but I'm already feeling exhausted by the whole thing. I'm trying to stay hopeful, but it's hard. I don't want to lose him, but I also don't want to lose myself in the process. For now, I'm taking it one day at a time, and we'll see where this road takes us. Update 3. It's been a few weeks since my last update, and I wish I had better news to share. After a few counseling sessions, it's become clear that my husband and I are on very different pages when it comes to what we want from our marriage. The therapy sessions have been revealing, to say the least. My husband did start opening up about his past and some of the reasons behind his behavior, which was helpful. It turns out, he grew up in a household where his parents constantly made little digs at each other, always under the guise of just joking. It's something he learned to do from a young age, and he honestly thought that's just how relationships worked. That doesn't excuse what he's done, but it does explain why he didn't see it as a big deal. But here's the thing. Even after understanding where this behavior comes from, he's still struggling to change. He'll be good for a few days, really trying to be mindful of how he talks to me and how he treats me. But then something small will set him off, and he'll fall right back into the same patterns. It's like he can't help himself, and I'm left feeling hurt all over again. During our last session, the therapist asked me how I was feeling about the marriage now that we've been in counseling for a while. I had to be honest and tell her that I was feeling more and more uncertain. I love my husband, but I'm not sure love is enough to fix this. She encouraged me to think about what I really want for myself and whether this relationship is giving me that. That night, I had a long conversation with my husband. I told him that I've been feeling like I'm losing myself trying to keep this marriage together. I told him I was tired,